In Yemen, people chew ghat, which is in Yemen it's a form of a leaf that's much like chewing leaf tobacco. In its distilled form, it's a class 1 narcotic here, but over there it's a leaf and it's kind of a mild stimulant. It's very widely accepted thing to do in Yemen. However, it was prohibited on this rig, and so we were defending in that case. There were multiple people shot by a man who was a Yemenis worker on the rig. Several people were shot, including the oil company man on the rig, man on site. His family was suing for wrongful death and premises liability. He had a gun on the rig. Guns, again, were prohibited on the rig, so there were rules that had been broken, namely the chewing of the ghat and the gun on the rig. But if anybody's ever been to Yemen, and one of the things we were trying to convey to the jury is everybody in Yemen has guns and everybody chews ghat. There's 8-year-olds going around with guns. It was really a difficult thing to try to put the jurors in the shoes of what it's like to live in Yemen. The other thing that we didn't know when we went to do the pretrial research was how the ghat chewing was going to affect jurors' view of the situation. And one of the questions that we asked on the questionnaire, the intake questionnaire at the mock trial was, do you smoke? Do you drink? And the way they could answer that was, I smoke, I don't smoke, I used to smoke. They could also answer, I drink, I don't drink, I used to drink. One of the things that we found from our pretrial research, in addition to all sorts of good thematic things in terms of how to best tell the story of our case, one of the best things that came out of that was that we found that people who smoked were okay with our case. People who didn't smoke were okay with our case. People who drank were okay with our case, and people who didn't drink were okay with our case. But hands down, people who were reformed smokers and drinkers, people who used to but didn't anymore, were incredibly critical of our case. And it was a very predictive finding, and it was a very strong trend. And we used those questions when we drafted a supplemental juror questionnaire. We used it at trial, and we used those questions. And we picked the jury. That was one of the main components we used to help us decide who were ideal and non-ideal jurors. That was an instance where the pretrial research was useful on all kinds of levels, and we also found some very predictive questions that we could then use in trial. We didn't get to a verdict on that case. The case actually settled midway through, but we were fortunate enough to talk to the jurors, and at least at the time where we were in the process, the jurors were absolutely going to find for the defense. So we decided that that meant that we had done a pretty good job. Case wasn't over. Who knows what had happened at the end, but at that juncture, we felt like we had done our job well.